Hey, I have no stake in this race. I don't really give a shit about Palworld, but I do give a shit about fair use since I react to a lot of people's YouTube videos. So they could come after me for not transforming the content enough, which is actually fair. That would probably be truthful because all I do is watch the YouTube video and add extra commentary. There's no editing, no nothing. More than likely, probably not considered fair use. Now, the other hand, stealing concepts or maybe borrowing inspiration from another IP or category, genre of game, monster taming RPGs, probably doesn't mean that your game is copying one of the greatest franchises of all time. It's unfortunate to see a big company like Nintendo trying to just bully people by throwing out lawsuits, right? The company that created Palworld is way smaller, significantly smaller, to the point where they could just throw suits. They could just throw suits and litigation at the Palworld company, and they would be buried. They would be completely buried and have to settle whatever Nintendo wants out of court because it's not worth the cost and the money thrown at them. It sucks. Let's see what good old Force Gaming has to say about it. I think I've watched a few of his videos before. I don't know if I've reacted to any of his videos, but I've at least seen them. If the video is good, I'll probably subscribe because I should have been. That's how I see his videos because I've watched a few but forget to subscribe. So don't be like me. Subscribe to the people you watch. Thanks. All right, let's turn it up.
Warning, not sure I'm going to be able to keep it together for this one. Yeah, okay, so here's the story. Nintendo just filed a patent infringement lawsuit in Japan against Palworld developer Pocket Pair. They released a public statement announcing this suit on Wednesday, which said, Nintendo, together with the Pokemon Company, filed a patent infringement lawsuit in the Tokyo District Court against Pocket Pair on September 18th, 2024.
It doesn't help that their company name is called Pocket Pair.
This lawsuit seeks an injunction against infringement and compensation for damages on the grounds that Palworld, a game developed and released by the defendant, infringes multiple patent rights. Nintendo will continue to take necessary actions against any infringements of its intellectual property rights, including the Nintendo brand itself, to protect the intellectual properties it has worked hard for to establish over the years. So the first thing to make clear here is that Nintendo is suing specifically for
yeah, which means they're not suing for mods. I just want to let everyone know that the oh, if you mod in Ash Ketchum, you're gonna get Palworld sued, bro. If you mod in Pikachu and Charizard, you're gonna get the game sued. Like that's not how it works. They're suing Palworld for their original creations that lean towards patent infringing Pokemon or monsters, not modders. That's probably what he's about to say.
Patent infringement and not copyright infringement. What that means is that they aren't suing Palworld because, let's say, the Palworld creatures look awfully similar to Pokemon creatures. You might remember when Palworld first got popular, this was a big point of discussion, with many people even theorizing that some pals were directly ripping Pokemon models and then being slightly altered.
They're suing for the mechanic with throwing Pokeball? You're fucking kidding me.
That isn't what this lawsuit is about. And trust me, if Nintendo could sue for that, they would. Yeah. Absolutely. If they had even the tiniest shred of evidence that Pocket Pair stole and ripped off like Bowser, Pokemon character models, they would sue them into oblivion.
Yo, is that Staraptor? You know, yo, is that Lucario? Wait, hold on. All right, chat.
Models, they would sue them into oblivion.
You're going to tell me that's not Lucario? You're going to tell me that's not Lucario? I want you to lie to me and tell me that doesn't fucking look like Lucario. Nah, man.
And you know what? That would be reasonable. You can't steal code or directly rip someone's assets for your
Anubis, no. That's not Anubis. That's Lucario. Stop lying to me.
IP. I mean, you can do that, but you can't do it without expecting consequences. But again, that's not what's happening here. Looking fairly similar isn't enough, which is exactly why Nintendo hasn't sued for copyright infringement. No, they are suing for infringements on patents related to Pokemon, or in other words, they're suing because they believe there are mechanics, systems, or features from Pokemon games that Nintendo has patented and claim ownership of that are similar to the ones being used in Palworld. Now, at this point, you might be asking yourself, can you patent game mechanics and systems? Yes, you can.
Yes.
It's about as stupid as it sounds. It is one of the most frustrating things to me in this industry.
The problem is, if you start to sue for it, it makes it hard for people to iterate and reiterate upon game design decisions and game design points that make a game better, right? Like Nintendo can keep releasing the same shitty game and no one else can make a better version of it if a Nintendo sues them for it, right? Like, okay, well, throwing the Pokeball, that's Nintendo's IP. You can't fucking do that. They're the ones who made up the Pokeball, you dumb bitch. But, like, there could be a way better, like, say Capcom wanted to make a Monster Hunter game or a Monster Hunter adjacent game, Spectrobes or like Bakugan, where you throw a ball at the monster to catch it, and now you have the monster instead of just killing it, right? And now you can call in that monster to help you on the other monster hunt, so you can get your monster to fight their monster. Nintendo could sue for that. Which means that if you liked the gameplay loop of Monster Hunter more than you liked the gameplay loop of Pokemon, but they just added Pokeballs and you were sold, you can't. Like, good luck. Nintendo's gonna sue Capcom.
Because you will get these games with really cool ideas or features, hats off to the people who make them, but then no one else can use them for 20 years, all thanks to patents. It stifles creativity, it stifles the evolution of genres, and legitimately holds back game development. It just makes
monster taming is a development
because of these patents, or
is
we
a
don't
game
get
genre.
games that are as good as they could be. Without question,
people love monster taming RPGs.
Less innovation and growth in games in this hobby, all due to patents. Here's a few examples, some well-known things off the top of my mind. Not really, I've written them down, but okay. So the first one that particularly pisses me off is Warner Brothers' patent for the Nemesis system from Shadow of Mordor. If you don't know, in that game, you would regularly come in conflict with these named enemies over and over again. So you fight someone with the name, I don't know, Gorthar the Destroyer. And then whatever the outcome of the fight, whether you won, whether you lost, whether you ran away, eventually later on in the game, you could bump into them again. In that next encounter, Gorthar would remember what happened and comment on what occurred, saying something like, hey, you're gonna run away from me again? And then on top of that, though, they would evolve, getting stronger or weaker, climbing up in the ranks or being demoted, all based on what occurred in your previous fight with them. And this would keep happening over and over and over again, getting more layers, deeper interaction and history between the characters, and then these nemesis creatures fighting other.
Fellas, is it wrong to patent character development?
Characters and then getting stuff based on that. It was just a super.
The Nemesis system is basically a character development system for your character and one other character.
Of drama and personality to what would otherwise just be fighting forgettable mini bosses or elites in many other games. This Nemesis system was so awesome. Myself and a lot of people really, really liked it. However, it hasn't been used in any other game franchise since.
And it
Not because it wasn't good, but because Warner Brothers had patented it. So unless they happen to make another game that uses the Nemesis system, which they have not beyond the Shadow of War and Shadow of Mordor games, we are not going to see any other game that has it until their patent runs out in 2035. Yes,
that's insane.
Got another 11 years of waiting. Actually, I don't even know if a game can start development using that system until after the patent runs out. So in which case, we might be waiting until 2040 before we see another game that has a Nemesis-like system. Thanks a lot, Warner Brothers. Really appreciate it. And what is so frustrating about this, like I said, is that it really stifles growth and innovation in gaming. Because yes, the Nemesis system was amazing. Like, hats off to the Shadow of Mordor developer Monolith. They made a phenomenal system that really elevated the open world experience. It just made it so much more interesting coming across these difficult encounters, these Nemesis, and having these layers and depth and history and backstory just based on what you did with them in the game. It was so cool. But now it's been 10 years since the initial release of Shadow of Mordor, and in an alternate timeline, we could have had many other games
with the Nemesis system,
better, more evolved, and improved versions of that system. In fact, I'll just say it plainly, many open world games would have been better without question if with the Nemesis system. Yeah, variation of the Nemesis system. But they didn't, because in this timeline, in reality, thanks to Warner Bros. Patent, it hasn't and it will not happen for at least another 11 years. Now, I will add a note here. With patents like this, we could technically see other games use these things, but in actuality, it never happens, because if another game developer wanted to have something like that in their game, they would have to pay Warner Bros.
You'd have to pay
that fee would likely cost a ton of money. So, as a result, they just don't bother, and that's the thing.
It unnecessarily stifles game innovation by holding back a feature or a gameplay design decision. That's like if Dark Souls had patented the bonfire, like the concept of the bonfire. You know how few Souls-likes there would be? And people love Souls-likes as a genre. Not just like if you're thinking literally and you think I'm just talking about a bonfire. No. I mean the concept of a bonfire, where that is where you can spend souls, is where you respawn. That is like the overarching like central point of your game, as long as you're not doing a deathless run. That that would have completely stopped a genre like Souls-likes ever existing, right? A procedural generation with character progression trees and random loot, right? Say someone took the concept of rogue a long time ago, maybe even like a more recent rogue, like the Binding of Isaac, and they patented one of the main gameplay systems of something like the Binding of Isaac. We wouldn't see as many roguelikes and roguelites as we see now. They would all be very different. And while some people think, yeah, that's good, like more different types of games, there's only so many types of games. And if everyone went around actually suing each other and went around patenting things, there would be a whole less genre-defining games. Because the first IP, isn't always the best to use something. Like an IP patent is one thing, but a mechanic patent is the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. Yeah, I agree.
Is we don't get to play any more games with the Nemesis system until after 2035, or if Warner Bros. Eventually gets around to making more games with it. I think they have a Wonder Woman game that's supposedly going to be implementing it, I believe, if I'm recalling correctly. We've only had 2 in the past decade, and we could have had a whole lot more. And if you haven't played the game, you might not fully understand, but this is, I think, a perfect example of a patent stifling the industry. Open world games, having the inclusion of Nemesis systems would add a lot more to so many games that are out there right now. And that one's really personal to me for that reason, because I played Shadow of Mordor and was blown away by the system when I first encountered it. And at the time I thought, wow, this is a great mechanic. Open world games are going to be
Street Fighter should have patented the design on fighting on a 2D plane back in Street Fighter 2. You know, it's like Capcom isn't a fucking piece of shit, so they didn't do that. Some people hate Capcom sometimes, but hey, they weren't assholes about that, and now we have a bunch of different 2D fighting games. We have Guilty Gear, we have Mortal Kombat, we have Killer Instinct. Those games would have never existed if one of the fighting games, it could have even been Karate Champ before Street Fighter 2 or before Street Fighter 1, said, we're going to patent the idea of 2 people fighting on a 2D plane until the life bars hit 0 with a timer. Dude, every fighting game would be fucking cooked. And then the first 3D fighter to do it, if they patented it, guess what? It would have been Virtua Fighter, not Tekken, and then we'd all be fucking... Actually, we'd be eating because we'd be playing Virtua Fighter. But there would be no innovation in the space. We wouldn't see the giants that were created from Street Fighter's footsteps, right? Street Fighter is still one of the biggest... because Patton would be eating. It so wouldn't be good for the industry, but Street Fighter walked so that Mortal Kombat, Guilty Gear, and KOF could run, right? Virtua Fighter crawled so that Tekken, Soul Calibur, and DOA could walk and run. You can't patent these things and not expect people to be mad at you for stifling creativity.
So much better and evolving and improving on this in the future, but nope, that's not what happened. There's plenty of other patents that have held back gaming as well. Another good example is the Bandai Namco patent on loading screen mini games. So for a lot of years, loading screens were a pretty big issue.
That got patented. That's why we don't see more loading screen menus that are games. Fuck you, Bandai Namco, dude. I already was kind of mad at Bandai Namco for Tekken 8, for the way they've treated Soul Calibur as a franchise, for, I don't know, since like Soul Calibur 3. For loading screen minigames are patented by Bandai Namco. That's why the old Dragon Ball fighting games and Dragon Ball Z fighting games used to have loading screen minigames. And a lot of games where it would be really cool to have a loading screen minigame like a Mario game or a Sonic game or Astro Bot. Games like that would be really cool with a loading screen minigame, but guess what? They can't have it. You know why? Because Bandai Namco patented it.
It was something they had to deal with, especially back in the 90s. You would often have these games with loading screens that took a full minute or even multiple minutes of waiting before you could get back to playing. For the most part, this just meant staring at a progress bar, maybe getting some concept art, some tips on the screen. Usually it meant going up to get a drink or go to the bathroom. But then in 1995, Bandai Namco, they had this great idea. What if they offered mini games that you could play while you waited for the main game to load?
It's a good idea.
And that was pretty cool. They did this with their game Ridge Racer as well as Tekken 5. Those are 2 most notable ones. Unfortunately, though, they also patented this idea of what they called auxiliary games while waiting for the main game, and so we never saw it again. This patent did happen to expire in 2015, but by that point, most games no longer
needed loading screens. Yeah.
So there wasn't much use case for it any longer, but there was an entire 20-year period where it would have been awesome to have mini games in our loading.
The only loading screen minigame I remember is Budokai, the Master Roshi spinning around the spaceship, and you could launch around the screen. Budokai 1 and 2 had loading screen minigames, and also Tekken 5, which he just said. I didn't know about Ridge Racer because that was before my time.
Bandai Namco owned ones, but we didn't thanks to Bandai Namco's patent. Here's a few others quickly. BioWare had a patent of the dialogue wheel with the cardinal directions of a wheel representing certain sentiments or regular.
Come on.
Sega's patent of the arrow over vehicle navigation system from Crazy Taxi, which Sega.
Why would people patent these things, Hijacks? Why would people patent these things?
Then used to sue Fox over, as they had a similar mechanic in the Simpsons driving game.
Yeah, I think it was Hit and Run.
A patent for its whole shtick, which is rolling an object around that picks up other objects in the environment, growing ever bigger in the process. If you wondered why we never saw more games
like Katamari.
Patent.
Yeah, because Katamari is such a simple concept, and I'm sure someone could make a way better version of Katamari games. But I guess we can't. Hit and Run was so fun. I think it was the one before Hit and Run. I think it was Road Rage. Which one was first? The one that was very similar to Crazy Taxi. So people call it a Crazy Taxi clone, and it kind of was. With the arrow was the first one. So I think it was Hit and Run, and then Road Rage was after, right?
Uber Team had a patent for playing in 2 alternate versions of the same space simultaneously on a split screen, which is a mechanic they used in the game The Medium. And then Nintendo also even had the Sanity System patent all the way back for Eternal Darkness, although that one was evidently specific enough that many other games have released with similar systems, but not exactly the same.
Run with GTA, Jason?
Nintendo suing Pocket Pair over Palworld. Let's dive into that a little further. So right now, we don't actually know exactly, and apparently Pocket Pair, they don't know either, exactly which patents Nintendo are suing for. They have said that there are multiple patents being infringed upon, but haven't clarified exactly what ones. Now, Nintendo has quite a few Pokemon-related patents listed.
Road Rage,
okay. These things cover the following: throwing a ball to capture weakened creatures,
Lovely.
And throwing that ball again after capture to release them under your control. Summoning and riding a creature you've captured via the aforementioned ball system.
Summoning and riding a creature via the aforementioned ball system. So if they removed balls and turn it into nets. Wow.
Actively swapping mounts while riding them, storing captured creatures inside of a ball and or a terminal-like system. And how about this one? Encouraging healthy sleeping habits by tending to captured creatures in their game. I am not joking. They have a patent for encouraging healthy sleeping habits. Now, those are the dumbed down, simplified explanations of these patents. The fact is, every single one of these has very
it's in Palworld
with fine details on exactly how those systems are implemented.
They're also kind of in Palworld.
Like exactly how is a ball thrown that captures a creature? How many shakes does the ball do in an attempt to capture said creature? The specific method of riding and swapping your captured creatures, and what specific ways does the game promote healthy sleeping habits? So for example, in the patent that they have for, quote, the gamification of health awareness based on wake up time, it reads like this: an object is to provide a user with motivation to enjoy waking up in the morning and guide the user to sufficient awakening by generating a breeding event in a breeding game of a virtual life form when the user wakes up in the morning. And it goes on from
there. What the fuck? Why is that so specific?
That list of things are some of the stuff that Nintendo has Pokemon patents for. They're just a few examples. They have many, many more patents pertinent specifically to Pokemon. Now, as of now, we just don't know which combinations of these patents Nintendo is claiming have been infringed. And as
throwing the ball, riding a Pokemon, and like swapping to another one mid, you can't swap mid riding animation or anything. Wait a minute, right? Like, if you're doing fly, you can't, like, during fly, you can't swap. If you're doing surf, you can't swap during surf. I don't understand, actually. That I don't get. That one I don't understand. But, like, throwing the ball, You can't swap them out. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But I will say, like, the throwing the ball one's the most obvious. Clearly, if they're not trying to sue for designs. But that could easily be remedied, right? They could change that to like a net system or a capture system of some other kind because it says ball or terminal or similar terminal. That's like very easy to change. You could change it to like a screen, like Digimon, as long as Digimon doesn't have that patented. Where it's like it goes into like a recording device. Like I have now recorded this and now I can like transmit it back out into the world through like a smartphone.
As I mentioned, Palworld
they probably should have done that
they don't
from the
know
beginning,
either.
by the
According
way.
To them, they've not yet been told. They actually released an official statement via Twitter in regards to the suit, and it says, regarding the lawsuit, yesterday a lawsuit was filed against our company for patent infringement. We have received notice of this lawsuit and will begin the appropriate legal proceedings and investigations into the claims of patent infringement. At this moment, we are unaware of the specific patents we are accused of infringing upon, and we have not yet been notified of such details. Pocket Pair is a small indie game company based in Tokyo. Our goal as a company has always been to create fun games. We will continue to pursue this goal because we know that our games bring joy to millions of gamers around the world. Palworld was a surprise success this year, both for gamers and for us. We were blown away by the amazing response to the game and have been working hard to make it even better for our fans. We will continue improving Palworld and strive to create a game that our fans can be proud of.
Man, I know that's a PR ass response, but man, if that doesn't sound like a company that's just trying to make a good product and doesn't give a fuck what's in it, as long as it makes people happy, I don't know what does. I hope we don't let Nintendo bully this company. Even if they did infringe on some copyrights, right? It's close to home. Y'all can settle that shit. Nintendo's right there, bro. You're a small company in Tokyo. Y'all settle that shit. Find another system in your game to replace the current system that is infringed upon.
It is truly unfortunate that we will be forced to allocate.
It's also really fucked up that you're telling someone that they're infringing on your copyright, but you don't have to tell them what as part of the lawsuit. I think from the get-go, with the original lawsuit itself, you should have to tell someone why they're... When you arrest someone and you tell them what they're being arrested for. When you pull someone over and you tell someone why they are being pulled over. Right? I don't understand why this part of the legal system, the judicial part of the legal system, does not follow that same rule as the criminal part of the legal system. Because the ramifications can end up being the same. You can end up in jail. You can end up with massive fines. Even if Pocket Pair wins this lawsuit, it would be hilarious if Pokemon got boycotted and no one looks at their shit anymore. No, there are enough Nintendo fans out there that Nintendo fans were already calling for a lawsuit. When Palworld came out and Palworld wasn't on the Switch, it's not on Nintendo consoles, there was already people boycotting Palworld and saying Palworld is clearly a ripoff of Pokemon. Do not play this game. Do not support this game. Play the original. There was already people saying that. But in that vein, that's like saying Mortal Kombat comes out, the first one, and people instead say, no, this game is clearly a ripoff. This isn't by Capcom. Some fucking dumbass Midway company made it. Don't play Mortal Kombat. Go play the original. Play Street Fighter 2. Like, you see how stupid that sounds when you put it that way? Yeah, I thought so.
Significant time and matters unrelated to game development due to this lawsuit. However, we will do our utmost for our fans and to ensure that indie game developers are not hindered or discouraged from pursuing their creative ideas. We apologize to our fans. As always, thank you. It goes on. And that last bit is, I think, really the rub. It's so frustrating on so many levels. In terms of this lawsuit and the potential outcome, right? Well, if they don't settle out of court, odds are Pocket Pair will be required to make adjustments to whatever systems or mechanics are found to infringe upon Nintendo's patents. And then after that, they will probably also have to pay some sort of...
The Pokemon fans saying that shit clearly suck fat cock. I'm not saying that. That's weird. I'll just say suck fat cock. I want to breed Vaporeon. No, there's also just console fanboys. It's very normal for people of consoles to defend a game, right? When there was this space-like Halo almost shooter that existed in the Wii ecosystem. There was two. There was the Conduit 1 and the Conduit 2. There was a small amount of controversy around these games, specifically the second one, because it had online play. It functioned without motion controls, very similar to something like an arena shooter along the lines of Halo. Even had the recoverable health system, had the arena pickups where you picked up grenades and weapons on the map and recovered health, and the maps were very, vertical as a Halo map is. There was Halo fans saying that the Conduit 2 should be boycotted and that it was a ripoff of Halo. And it's not even on... It's on the Wii. Like, they don't have access to Halo. Why do you give a fuck? That's so strange, And there's been tons of, small amounts of pushback and flack like that for a lot of games. And those games are generally called clones. They get called clone games. And we'll talk shit about them. People say that they're copyright infringement, that they're knockoff games, that they should be boycotted, they shouldn't be interacted with. But those kinds of games, having clones, yeah, it's not on Switch, exactly. Those kinds of games, the clones, create a new part of the market. There's already other monster taming games. There's small indie monster taming games like Cassette Beast. You go ahead and look that up, and you'll see that it's closer to a spin of Digimon and Pokemon mixed together because you can fuse the monsters together, which I think is really cool. But the genre of monster taming games already exists. And because of that, Monster Rancher 2, yeah, because of that, Pokemon has to adjust their strategy and become a better monster taming game because there's competition. Clones breed competition. Games in the same genre that were at some point called clones create competition. Mortal Kombat created competition for Street Fighter. Street Fighter created competition for Mortal Kombat. KOF created competition for both Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter. That's just how it works. Same with Guilty Gear. That's how it works. And it also creates a smaller market segment breakoff where people enjoy that form of whatever genre it is, right? If you look at the open world RPGs, right? You look at something like Far Cry, you look at something like Assassin's Creed, they're both by the same company, so this is harder to do because they all have the same formula, okay? But some people prefer Far Cry to Assassin's Creed. Some people prefer Guilty Gear to Street Fighter. That's just how it works. But I don't think those things should be sued upon, or they should create lawsuits and patents over it. I think that it makes for a healthier and more diverse game economy, and I like that.
A fee or fine to Nintendo. Either way, Nintendo is going to cost Pocket Pair a good chunk of money, whether that's just the cost of having to go through a lawsuit, even if they are found not guilty of infringement, or if they are found guilty of infringement, having to then pay Nintendo directly. The game is not going to shut down. Well, I guess it could if Nintendo bleeds
the company dry
enough of money that they go out of business, in which case, yeah, the game could probably shut down. And all of this in the name of some flippin' patents.
Hey, what's the other monster taming game? Tim, right? Wasn't there another? Look, Tim. Why didn't Tim get sued? I don't get it.
On game mechanics. Honestly, this entire situation, it's crap. Unless Nintendo has some proof that Pocket Pair stole and copy-pasted source code from Pokemon games to use in Palworld, if that's the case, I totally understand. But the idea that they're suing the devs because the games have similar mechanics like capturing monsters in a ball or incentivizing healthy sleeping habits, it's all garbage, man. Patents over basic game mechanics and systems are dumb, and they shouldn't be a thing as far as I'm concerned. I am no legal expert. This is completely out of my depth, but just the basis of it is so frustrating to me. And I also want to make it clear, I am in full support of companies protecting their
IPs. Me too.
IPs.
I just think when it goes ridiculous, it's stupid.
Pokemon code.
Look, if like Devil May Cry, someone makes a new action hack and slash adventure game that plays exactly like Devil May Cry, but is its own engine, own source code, created their own hitbox, collision boxes, and hurt boxes, and their own original story and characters, no problem. If someone just re-releases Devil May Cry 2 and changes the names of all the fucking characters, I say Devil May Cry 2 because that's the one people don't like, right? Let's say Devil May Cry 3. That one's good. And they just change the names of all the characters and change the background locations, but the source code is the same. Collision boxes, the hitboxes, the hurt boxes. Gameplay loop is exactly the same. That's obvious. Sue the fuck out of them, right? And then there's nuance to that where there's obviously parts where if you take it from someone, but the entire thing isn't taken, you can sue a little harder or sue a little less hard. But I'm still just confused about why in God's green earth can sue someone for copyright infringement, or patent infringement rather, and not have to tell them what patents they've infringed upon with the start of the lawsuit. You should be able to know. You should be told in the paper, in the subpoena, when you get served, this is why you're being sued. The same way when you get arrested, they tell you this is why you're being arrested. It doesn't make sense.
Changing the colors and slapping a new name on the game, that's one thing, but putting patents on ideas for systems and features, it's just bad. It sucks now. It's always sucked, especially when it comes to this point where we are seeing lawsuits. It is bad for game developers, and it's bad for us, the gamers. This stifles creativity. It prevents more games from not just having similar systems, but then improving on them, adding to them, and making better games as a result. And Nintendo coming out and suing Pocket Pair, this is the kind of show of force that will likely prevent other developers from trying to make games that are similar in that monster capture genre. Indie devs, they don't want to risk getting sued by Nintendo.
They don't have enough money. They'll get bled dry.
So the result is many won't bother. They won't try to make a game that innovates and expands upon Pokemon's shortcomings. They'll just do something else entirely. Now, I do realize as well, there's still a lot we don't know, and there's definitely, without question, a lot of nuance here. Other monster capture games do in fact exist.
Yeah,
that
he's probably gonna
Nintendo hasn't sued for patent infringement, and we don't know yet.
Oh, I thought he was gonna name a few.
What Nintendo is suing for? They haven't specified. We see their patents. We know they're suing because they think multiple patents have been infringed. They just haven't said what ones. So the patents that have been infringed upon, how they were infringed, exactly how closely are Palworld's mechanics similar to that of Pokemon's, all of that will come out during the process of this lawsuit, assuming it all goes public. Even still though, like the Nintendo story specifics aside, generally speaking, I dislike this practice and what it does to gaming. The Warner Bros. Patent on the Nemesis system is the one that tilts me in particular. I think a lot of my vigor in this video is like suppressed anger over that. The fact that more games don't have, every open world game should have a Nemesis system, and they would all be better because.
Do you hear that? How much he's passionate about the idea of a game design decision or a game mechanic moving over to other games, but it can't, because if it did, those companies would get sued. Do you know how fucking shitty that is? Do you know how awful that is? Imagine if Remnant had a Nemesis system on the Aberration bosses. Yeah, see, like, they remember you and they're like, hey, you thought you killed me last time? Nah, that was only me weakened. You better chill out because we're coming for you this time. It's like, oh, I remember when you were hiding on the staircase, motherfucker, using the glitch. Yeah, I got your bitch ass this time.
It's a blanket statement, but you honestly, man, it just tilts me so much. It was so damn cool, and they've made pretty much zero use of it over this past decade, all because they have a patent. They're not making other games, and no one else can do it either. So I guess we'll just get to experience games with Nemesis systems sometime after 2035. If I'm still alive, looking forward to it. I just hate it so much, dude. I hate this so much, honestly. It makes gaming worse. No, thank you. All right, that's all for today. Thank you for watching. See you next time.
Yeah, I think he raises some really good points. I think the main thing about patent infringement or patents being, if they have logograph, that'd be so funny. They can teleport to you if you're in an uninhabitable zone, like a zone they can't reach. They can just teleport to you. I think the idea of being able to copyright systems in your game makes it really difficult for game design to move forward. And it really feels like the only companies who would ever sue for it or create a patent for it are companies who fully intend to use it to suppress competition and create monopolies. I don't know if you know this, but monopolies are illegal in the United States. I think monopolies are illegal in a lot of countries. And putting patents on game design mechanics or game design decisions creates monopolies, because it means you're monopolizing a certain style of game mechanic. Yes, you have to be fully transparent in the legal jargon of how that game design decision, of how that game mechanic works, but that doesn't mean that other people can use it because it's still patented. That means if similar enough mechanics exist in a game, you could potentially be sued and sued into the ground if you're a small studio. And that's shitty. I'm gonna like this video. And I'm gonna subscribe, and I think you guys should too. This guy's got like a bajillion subscribers. He doesn't really need more, but I mean, everyone likes money, so subscribe, and maybe he'll have like a sponsor read or whatever, and that always helps. Good video, very good points.